When Belly says,
I think I'm gonna stay,
Jeremiah responds with this.
That's great. You do that. Just don't fucking call me again.
But let's back up and talk about their entire conversation because it revealed a lot. Jeremiah's been essentially bedridden all day, waiting by his phone, waiting for Belly to call him. And when she finally does call him, she says,
you don't wanna, murder me?
and he responds with,
I don't know. A little.
and right off the jump, it just rubbed me the wrong way. I know he's allowed to be upset about their wedding getting cancelled, but given how he acted for the majority of this episode, him making a joke about that, like I said, just didn't fully sit right with me. Especially because he was giving scary psycho vibes in a lot of the scenes that he was in this episode. Jeremiah also says,
But also, I can't sleep without you. So.
And I had the same thought as a lot of other people breaking down this episode, where it seems like he slept just fine in Cabo without Belly. And when Jeremiah says that he can't sleep without Belly, he looks very hopeful for a second. If you watch right here, it seems like he's hoping that she'll say the same back, that I can't sleep without you, Jeremiah. And when she doesn't, he looks really disappointed. Belly says,
I've been worried about you.
and Jeremiah just says,
Thanks.
he doesn't really say anything back about how he's worried about her as well. I mean, technically, he's the one who called off the wedding. When he did call off the wedding, Belly was still expressing to him the desire to still go forward with it. And while we all know that deep down she didn't really want to and she was too confused to go forward with it, I still kind of hoped he would check on her the way she's trying to check in on him during this conversation. Even though it was kind of initiated by her by saying that she, is still in love with Conrad, she's obviously still very confused, and I think they're both hurting. So like I said, I had hoped he would ask her how she's doing or check on her, but obviously that didn't happen. They kind of joke around a little bit about Steven and Taylor, and then Jeremiah asks,
Hey, what is this? Can you just come home so we can talk?
Jeremiah asks Belly to come home so that they can talk, and Belly tells him.
I'm in Paris.
And naturally, you can see the surprise on Jeremiah's face. Belly says that she needs some time to think, and Jeremiah says, I've had time to think too. And in that moment, it kind of made me realize that he might not be taking this very seriously, because when Belly says that she is in Paris and needs time to think, it's kind of implied that she needs a longer period of time to think, whereas Jeremiah's only had, I believe, about 24 hours at this point, if I'm doing my math correctly. And that's probably not enough time to reflect on everything that went wrong in their relationship. Jeremiah then finally admits,
The wedding was it was a bad idea.
but he also says,
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that things have to end, does it? I mean, we could just go back to the way that things were.
we could just go back to the way that things were. The look of kind of shock on Belly's face is, I think, what a lot of us were thinking, because the way things were was admittedly not great and exactly what led them to rush into a wedding that neither of them were ready for. The way things were them never really communicating, Jeremiah monopolizing a lot of the relationship, Belly giving up a lot of herself for the relationship, Belly ignoring the fact that she has feelings for and is in love with someone else, Jeremiah being very ego and competition driven, and a major lack of them actually addressing what happened in Cabo and what led to it. So it doesn't seem like it's the wisest thing for them to just pretend everything that happened hasn't happened and go back to the way things were. The only person it would serve to go back to the way things were is Jeremiah. It definitely wouldn't serve Belly, and I wonder if she's kind of registering that at this time. So she responds with this,
I don't think that's possible, Jer.
and I was really proud of her in that moment to say that instead of just caving to Jeremiah. As we've seen in the past, Belly often caves to Jeremiah to avoid conflict or avoid a fight or placate him and keep him happy. But it was really nice to see her point out the obvious, which is that it would be really hard for them to go back to the way things were given everything that has transpired. I think at this point, Belly doesn't want to pretend that she doesn't have feelings for Conrad any longer. That cat is out of the bag. And I do think she's starting to kind of wake up to some of the decisions that she's made. When I often show any sort of empathy for Belly, I get a lot of flack for that. A lot of people will say, Belly shouldn't be free of accountability. And that's totally true. But here, I think her taking some time away and going to Paris is actually her doing that. It seems like she's planning to take this time to reflect on everything. To kind of look at the bigger picture. A lot of people were upset about this episode, but I don't think it was, I think it had a purpose, is I guess what I'll say. Because I don't think it would have been very realistic for Belly to just run straight to Conrad. I don't think that would do any of these characters justice, and I don't think it wouldn't do justice to Belly and Conrad's potential relationship. That's not really how I want to see them get together, without any sort of reflection or thought or time in between. In the same way that I had said in one of my previous videos that I didn't want them to get together by cheating, I also don't want them to get together in this kind of really immature and, like I said, unrealistic way where she calls off the wedding to Jeremiah and then just immediately jumps into a relationship with Conrad. I think if they were to do that, maybe that would be fine in the short term because it would serve as a distraction for Belly, but I don't think that if they got into the relationship that way, that it would last very long. I would rather see them go into this with the correct mindset and go into this after taking some time to reflect on everything that happened and give Belly some time to heal. But anyways, when Belly says to Jeremiah that she doesn't think it's possible for things to go back to the way they were, you can kind of see it slowly registering on his face that he's probably not going to be able to sweet talk Belly into this the way he can usually do. His face and his demeanor kind of harden before our eyes, and like I've said before, he's allowed to be upset, but we just really saw kind of a two-faced version of Jeremiah in this episode. Then when Belly says,
I mean, I don't even know who I am anymore.
and Jeremiah responds with,
I know who you are.
and this really rubbed me the wrong way, because even if you're in a relationship with someone and even if you're in love with somebody, it's not their place to tell you who they are. That's such an individual thing. Each of us has the right to explore that for ourselves and define that for ourselves. We all get to kind of decide and discover who we are without anybody, not even people that we love, telling us who we are. And I would argue that Jeremiah isn't even correct in the statement when he says, I know who you are. I don't really think that he does, because as we've all mentioned before, Belly has given up a lot of herself to make this relationship work. Even take Paris, for example. If Jeremiah really knew who she was, he would know that that was something that meant a lot to her. And back when he was discouraging her from going to Paris and saying that, he would prefer them just be together as newlyweds without her going on that trip, really showed that he doesn't know who she is. And not only that, but he's not interested in her developing into who she is supposed to be. Belly then says,
I don't want to hurt you, Jared. I'm not the same person that I was before summer, and I think I need to find the person that I can be without you.
and when Jeremiah asks her, what does this mean? She says,
I think I'm gonna stay.
and as we all know, Jeremiah then responds with this.
Yeah, that's great. You do that. Just don't fucking call me again.
And I think we're seeing the reason why in any of Belly and Jeremiah's conflicts in the past, Belly just kind of caves to him. I have a feeling that she knows based on experience that this is how Jeremiah acts when he doesn't get his way in an argument or he doesn't get what he wants. We saw it in season 2 with that argument that they had roadside where he kind of blew up at her and started yelling at her. He told her during that argument that she wasn't there for him, when we also know that she texted him and he didn't respond. I think we also saw a little bit of it when they were talking in the bridal suite and deciding that they wouldn't go forward with the wedding, where he is yelling at her. And like I've said so many times, he's allowed to be upset. I don't expect him to have no emotion, but the way he talks to Belly when she's not just going along with what he wants and when she's not placating him is so aggressive. And I really do think that he tries to kind of manipulate her or appeal to her empathy for him or appeal to the fact that she does kind of coddle him. And when it works and she caves, then he's happy. And when it doesn't work and she doesn't cave, he reacts like this. And when you look at Belly's reaction after he says not to call him again, she kind of looks a little bit incredulous. And there's a part of me who's really hoping that she's starting to see his true colors and realize that she's kind of dodged a bullet. I don't know if that will be her realization, because I do think that she holds a lot of empathy for Jeremiah. Ultimately, this conversation with Jeremiah kind of confirmed for me that for him, the relationship is all about him. It's all about him and what he wants. Like I said, he didn't really ask Belly how she's doing or check in with her. He wasn't, even remotely supportive of the fact that she just said she needs a little bit of time. And the funniest part to me is that if he really wanted her back for the right reasons, I think he would probably be encouraging of her taking some time, and he would kind of stop and think and realize that if he gives her the space and time that she needs, she's more likely to see him in a positive light. But for him, he wants her to come right home. He wants her to come home now. He wants her to talk to him right now. He wants her to basically kiss and make up right now, go back to how things used to be and pretend nothing ever happened. And when she pushes back on that, he digs his heels in and kind of throws a little bit of a temper tantrum and says, fine, if you're not going to do what I want you to do, then don't even talk to me. That's essentially what he's saying. If you're not going to bend to my will and my whims, then I want nothing to do with you. So it's really not a two-way relationship. And like so many of us have pointed out, he was barely able to get out of bed all day. And then his demeanor immediately changes when he realizes Belly isn't going to just do what he asks her to do. And he kind of goes into his villain mode. Of course, you can be upset after a breakup, but I want to refer to a saying that I've heard so many times when it comes to relationships, and that is, how they leave tells you everything. And essentially what that saying is getting at is that you really see the true colors of somebody at the end of your relationship, and when they don't have a stake in somewhat pretending anymore, I guess. And when they feel like they have nothing to lose because they've already lost you, so they can kind of, if they've been wearing a mask, they can let it drop. And I think that's what Belly is experiencing here. She's really seeing Jeremiah's true self. And I don't think Jeremiah has the emotional intelligence, like I've mentioned in the past, to realize that all he really did with this conversation is probably push her further away and reaffirm in her mind that them going forward with the relationship is not a good idea.